And we're live, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Electrek Podcast. I'm Fred Lambert, and I'm joined with Seth Winshaw. How are you, Seth?
I'm good, Fred.
Awesome. A lot to talk about this week, and we're just looking at all the comments, the question that you're asking on YouTube before the show, and they all seems to have to do with the lawsuit that the SEC filed against Elon Musk this week. So
It's never boring. It's never boring in Tesla
No.
world.
Covering Tesla is a lot of fun. Less fun for Elon Musk this week, though. It's not a fun situation to be in when you're being sued. But yeah, let's start with that. What's up with that here? The bulk of it is really they're suing him for what they believe to be false statement that he made, and those statements are basically all on Twitter. So it was, of course, we all remember the funding secured tweet that he did when he first announced his intention to try to bring Tesla private. That seems to be the bulk of the SEC's complaint. But they built a whole timeline of what led Elon to tweet that. And they believe that based on that timeline and all the information that they gathered, Elon either knew that saying that the funding was secured at $420 per share was inaccurate, which would make this fraud, basically, because he made a false statement that led investor to believe that Tesla was worth $420 if they take private the company, or he didn't. He actually thought that it was accurate to say that, but it was in the SEC's word, was reckless to think that, which they still think it's an infraction to the rules and regulation of the SEC.
Right. So we talked about this a little bit before, but it's a combination of two things. So he said funding secured, and he said 420, and those two things together moved the market because, obviously, theoretically, Tesla could be sold at $420 a share, which was a 20% premium over what it was trading at when he said it.
Yeah.
Something like that. So 20% isn't a strange or weird premium to pay when going private. I don't think there's any set rules, but when you go private, you need to pay a premium. Otherwise, nobody wants to give up their shares. And I think, I can't remember what Dell was, but I know other companies that have gone private have had to offer like a 20% premium. So that part isn't crazy or nutty. And I think from what you said, I think because you read the whole thing, I read like bits and pieces, that Musk had discussed with the Saudis a premium price, but not.
No, that's the thing. He apparently didn't even discuss the price. So that's based on the complaint that the ECC did. They gathered information and they sort of built a timeline of what led to the complaint. And apparently the thing is, in July 31st, Musk had a meeting with the head of the investment of the Saudis public fund, and they made it clear to him that they are willing to move forward with a take private deal, that they have the money for it, but they didn't discuss an actual price, and that was July 31st. Then Elon left that meeting sure that the Saudis were behind him if they take a deal private, but without discussing the specific in terms of pricing. Then what happens is that a few days, even a day or two after that, Tesla reported their earnings, and that I think that resulted in an increase of 10% maybe of the stock. And then a few days after that, that's when he made that tweet, and he built that 20% premium, not only on the pricing that when he met with the Saudis, but with the recent increase of the stock price following their earnings. So that created a sort of a large premium versus what the Saudis discussed. Well, what the price would have been when he discussed it with the Saudis. So,
right. So, I mean, the assumption is that if the Saudis were willing to go take private, then they would pay a 20% premium because that's kind of like what everybody
roughly standard,
standard to take private. But because Tesla had gone up in 10% since the discussion, and apparently the Saudis gave a verbal commitment, then that extra 10% may not be something the Saudis would be willing to do, to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the discrepancy that the SEC is talking about. But the larger thing is, was he trying to mislead people? I think that's going to be really hard to prove. But obviously, it's kind of like the nuclear thing. Like if they do find him guilty or whatever, then he's probably going to get kicked off Tesla's officer list.
Yeah, right now what the SEC is seeking is being barred from being a director. So right now Elon Musk is chairman of the board, which is a director position, and being barred from any officer position within Tesla or public companies in general. And of course, he is chief executive officer. He's CEO, which is an officer position. So he wouldn't be able to be CEO anymore. Wouldn't be able to be chairman anymore. So that's what they're seeking. So they're seeking basically the maximum. Punishment that they can get on with a civil suit. Of course, not criminal charges, but apparently, what we learned from an article from the Wall Street Journal is that Elon was offered a deal which would have included no admission of guilt, would have also incorporated a fine, I think, and it would have been barred from any director position for 2 years. So what would have meant is that he wouldn't have been chairman anymore, but apparently maybe you could have stayed CEO of Tesla. Elon was apparently on board with the deal, and then at the last minute, that's when he pulled out of the deal, and the SEC ended up filing that complaint that we reported on yesterday. That's interesting because it would have basically been a slap on the wrist. I think he could have, in theory, maintained large control over the board, even if he's not chairman. Though they said that the deal might have also included adding 2 independent directors. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
2 additional directors.
That might have been where Elon was a little bit more worried about, because that could have made it put his control over the board, which officially doesn't have control over the board. They are independent board members, but of course most of them have been there for years and have been with Elon, and they are backing Elon, and they did back Elon even after the lawsuit. They issued a statement saying that they are behind Elon for the current situation, which is not it's a rare thing, because you see that in other major companies. Like Tesla is technically a major company now, and when something like that happened, the SEC is going after an executive of a company. Normally, the board will suspend the executive pending the lawsuit, since you have federal authority here trying to remove an executive from a company. So it's not a situation to take lightly in any way. But he has full support of the board right now. But apparently, Elon felt confident enough that he could get an even better deal, either by pulling out this one. Even though they filed a complaint, they could still reach a settlement, which would avoid a trial. Because if that thing moves to trial, even though, like I said, like you explained earlier, they would have to prove that he was trying to defraud anyone, to mislead investors. The SEC has like a conviction rate when they go to trial, like that's insanely high. I don't know for sure, but I think it's over 90% or something like that. So they're pretty good at what they do. But Elon felt confident that he could get a better deal.
And he got Mark Cuban's lawyer, so maybe,
yeah.
And I don't think Mark Cuban went to trial, right?
I don't remember if he won trial or just he got like a very good settlement that just basically was a slap on the wrist or something like that. But either way, he got away clean from it. So they think they can get the same deal maybe with Elon's situation. But yeah, I mean, the West yet, if you want my opinion on it, I know Elon certainly completely, like, it wasn't well handled. The whole take private attempt that was poorly handled, could have been way better at communicating the information. But the reason why the SEC is going after him, I think the wrong reason. Sorry about that. Not sure what happened here. I think his intention was good. When he tweeted that, he probably really think that he had the funding secured at 420, that it wasn't going to be a problem. And the reason why he was sharing information, he wanted Twitter has been his number one mode of communication for his fan base, for investors, for everyone. So he shared it there. I don't think that's a big issue. Um, I I don't. I certainly think it looks bad for the ACC to go after someone over a bunch of tweets like that, especially when you consider what's they are the they are the body, the agency regulating the financial markets, and I think there are way worse things happening on the financial markets right now for them to go after than Elon Musk tweeting something, even though, like I said, it wasn't well handled. So there's wrong on both sides here, but I think it's certainly not worth going after Tesla and after Elon Musk like they are doing right now.
Yeah, and if we're talking about swings of the stock price, today's news dropped it what about 14%. So the SEC actually has the power to drop uh, the stock price, and they're complaining about a few points that Elon's tweet may have caused the price to change.
Exactly,
And,
right.
and
Like it was a 10% hit that the shorts took. So basically, also we have to point this out. SEC here is protecting the shorts, right? Like that those are the one that lost money from Elon tweet when he said that the stock went up, so the shorts lost money.
right, and those are also the people pressuring the SEC to do something about it. Like it was
Exactly. So the
there's
SEC in this case is working for the shorts.
right, which I'm sure Elon takes no pleasure in knowing that, seeing it, that he already dislikes that group of folks.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a interesting situation. Somebody pointed me to the car maker Tucker back in the, I think, 50s. They actually got taken out by the SEC. And I'm not saying that Tesla is going to follow that same course. I think there's a lot of differences, but it's just interesting that because the established automakers at the time pressured the SEC to go after Tucker, they they basically sowed enough doubt to kind of end the company. And it's interesting that this is kind of playing out, though I again think it's going to be a totally different ending. Actually, some news that I'm going to disclose on the site shortly. I bought some Tesla stock that I'm long in. So
Following the recent decrease because of the
today's
news.
news.
Yeah, because
Yesterday's news.
you think that it's not a reflection of Tesla's valuation.
Right.
But yeah, because that's something to think about. So basically, what you're saying is that there's precedent that the SEC was influenced by third parties. In that case, that you're referencing, the big three automakers in Detroit, to attack basically a rival.
Right. I mean, it was kind of phrased differently. Like I saw the movie when I was young, and I was just looking at the Wikipedia, which kind of led me to a little bit of a rabbit hole.
Mhm.
But it's kind of weird. Like Tucker called the he didn't use the same words as Elon, but it was kind of close. Like he called the SEC stuff like silly and infuriating or something, which like that sounds like something Elon would say.
Well, that's what he said. I think infuriating was in his statement.
Maybe I'm mixing him up.
Unjustified, he said. He's saddened and disappointed by the SEC.
Yeah. So yeah, SEC.
And I mean,
Tucker said that the charges are silly and ridiculous, and hailed the indictment as an opportunity to explain his side of the story.
I mean,
This is 49.
What I find the most frustrating about it is that I think if the ACC wanted to get involved with people misleading the public about Tesla, I think they could have gone after a bunch of shorts on a dozen different occasions where shorts publicly tried to push narrative that turned out to be false. whether or not they believe it, just like whether or not Elon actually believed that he had the funding secured. Uh, if that's not something that's important to the CC, then it shouldn't be important too for the shorts. So I think they're on the wrong side of the fight here. Um, Even though I can get why it's justified to look into what Elon said, because for sure it was a strange way to announce a take private deal. Like I said, it was poorly handled. I can give them that. So I completely agree with them to looking into it. But when you actually read the complaint, even if you agree that it was poorly handled, like you find it hard to believe that you can sue someone over that. And I also completely get why Elon pulled out of the deal last minute. I mean, it made me think of my situation with Celine a few years back, and the way that the justice system is handled. Like they have all the power on their side. So like you put out a complaint like that, and if you you're just pressuring someone, and Elon was ready to take the deal, but last minute he thought like, oh, all right, I don't think I'm guilty here, so I'm not gonna go for it. And I thought the same thing when they had the injunction against me. It's just the only reason I didn't have the money that Elon has. Like I mean today, like I'm talking about it right now because they could sue me all day. I couldn't care. Now I have the money to actually fight them, but basically because I have more
Thanks,
money.
Electrek readers.
Thanks, electric readers, but also because I mean they don't have any money too. So it's not
Right.
because
You
I'm
now have
crazy
more money
rich.
than me.
Yeah, it's not because I'm crazy rich. It's because they're crazy poor right now. They did fell like I predicted, but my point is I actually took the settlement because I didn't see a way to fight them. I didn't have like everybody was quoting me like $30,000 to fight them, and even though a bunch of people got behind me and raised like $10,000, it wasn't enough. Like I really needed the $30,000 to counter the lawsuit, and if I just shut up, I didn't have to pay anything. So I shut up instead, but Elon didn't, and I
Right.
think that's a good thing. Ultimately, it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, and I think I don't know how these things really work behind the scenes, but I think at some point if they're not budging, then he can probably kind of like walk back his thing and maybe get his 2 years of not sitting on the board.
Yeah, probably the ACCs. That's still on the table
Right.
if you just settle this and we don't have to go to trial with this shit. But yeah, I don't know either. Uh, Quickly, we're gonna move on from it. But quickly, we posted that today, and I think a lot of people find it interesting because I don't think Elon's gonna be barred from the company, even though that's what the ACC is seeking. So I think ultimately it's gonna even if he doesn't like win trial and just take a settlement or something, I think he's still going to remain CEO. But we imagine if the ACC is successful in their attempt to bar him, who's next in line for because it's more relevant than ever now because of it. So we're looking at who's next in line at Tesla, and we had three names that came to mind, and you see them behind me: JB Straubel, Jérôme Guillen, and Deepak Ahuja.
And that's kind of like in the order of what we think is probably best or most likely, right? Like JB's probably number two, Jerome number three, and Deepak number four in terms of the if Elon got hit by a bus or a rocket or something,
Yeah, within
JB
within
would
that.
probably step in, right?
Yeah, within Tesla, maybe. In the article, though, I actually argued against JB being CEO. I just feel that as the chief technology officer, he might be more valuable there than as CEO because I mean, and I actually took Elon's on comment to argue with that because Elon made the interesting point, in my opinion, that the pace of innovation of a company is the most important thing. It's more important than anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you keep innovating in terms of technology, then you're going to be successful. And I think JB is very important in that front because I mean he's leading all the battery stuff at Tesla, and battery is of course going to be very important for the future of electric vehicles. Very important right now. I mean, just and not just the actual battery technology, but just battery supply. He's the one leading the whole gigafactory effort, the whole supply chains for battery effort. So
Yeah,
uh,
and he's not just a battery guy. He's the one who he built a electric Porsche when he was 16. He
yeah,
he's kind of been the technology. I don't want to say the technology brains behind Tesla, but he's been there
He's one of there for sure. Yeah.
since the beginning. And he's one of the listed co-founders, even though technically the two co-founders are no longer with the company.
The
But
three, there was also Wright,
yes,
Martin
right.
Wright. Yeah.
Um,
Three guys, Elon and JB were added later on, but
right.
yeah.
So there is some claim to the you know you would still have a founder running the company, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um,
But my point was more,
yeah, yeah. You don't
he
want to
should, he
saddle
should,
him with the
he,
CEO BS.
exactly. It's too much responsibility that would take him away from the technology stuff. So I'll sort of prefer have JB just focus on technology than being CEO, which
Why
brought,
not do that with Elon though? Why not put Elon in a technology only role and
there's an argument there for sure. Yeah.
yeah, so
But then we'll replace him. It's the come to we replace him.
right.
That's where I think the two others here, Jerome and Deepak, have a strong argument because for Jerome, uh, he has the most diverse experience within Tesla, I think, than any other executive at the company. I mean, he led directly the Model S program at a crucial time between 2010 and 2012, which is when they were actually launching it. Then he went on to lead all vehicle engineering programs. So very deep engineering background, and of course, is all like his school background is engineering. And before Tesla, he was working at Daimler, also leading engineering programs. So a very deep engineering background, which of course Tesla likes. Elon likes basically mostly. He wants most of his executive to have an engineering background. But then he also went on at Tesla to lead the worldwide sales and service for a while. So he also has an idea of the business side of the company, not just the engineering side. Then, of course, we know that he went on to be the head of the Tesla Semi program. So back to engineering, and he just got promoted to head of a whole automotive program. So he's president of automotive programs. So I think he's getting there. Like he's close to number 2 now. I think outside of just technology like JB, and of course Deepak.
That's the safe bet. That's the one that
Yeah,
investors would feel good about.
safe bet. Yeah, I agree with that because if you don't know about the Deepak's background, like, he's been mostly known for being the CFO of Tesla because he's been a CFO for 9 years if you account for the 2 stints because he was CFO I think for 2009 2015. Then he went out for a year. Then they brought him back 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, something like that. So he's been CFO for about nine years at Tesla, and also a diverse automotive background. Probably the the executive at Tesla with the more traditional automaker background. He's been at Ford for like a decade or two, and at Ford he held position in all different departments. He was CFO of a few of Ford subsidiaries, but also he worked in engineering because he has also an engineering background, and he worked also in business sides of thing and marketing and stuff. So certainly, like you said, a safe bet. But I think those are the three if they go internally, because they could also hire from outside. And I don't know. Do you think they would have a tough time hiring a CEO from outside? Someone who wants to take the job?
It certainly would be an entertaining job and an exciting job. I don't know, like, you definitely want to get experience, and I don't know if a 50-year-old guy being kind of close to being a 50-year-old guy myself. I don't know if a 50-year-old guy wants to kind of jump in the middle of the Tesla. Tesla runs at Elon speed, which is like it's a little bit hectic and crazy. So you would kind of want to. It's a weird mix. You would want a dynamic, exciting person, but also one that could kind of take the reins and has experience. And like I don't know how many of those kind of folks exist.
Hmm.
Maybe Marissa Mayer would be a good one. I don't like who would be a good like. I'm just trying to think of who would be a good Tesla CEO.
So you'd think more someone from the technology industry than for.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Although, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I just think if you look at the direction that just the automotive field in general is going. It's going toward technology more than
traditional automaker.
yeah. So even I think just this week, Daimler, had a succession plan, and they're moving their like technology guy into the CEO role. So I think you need a guy with a technology background or a girl, obviously, guy or girl, in the CEO position. Otherwise, you're
You're
just
gonna
kind of
fall behind.
you're stuck in today or yesterday.
Like we were saying, the pace, like Elon was saying, the pace of innovation.
Yeah, the pace of innovation. I mean, the automotive industry is really
Not
really
known for
slow.
that. Yeah.
So, but who does anybody come to mind for you? Are you thinking of any particular people?
Uh, what I suggested, like if Elon were to go, I suggested a co-CEO role of Jerome and Deepak.
I don't know if that would be a good idea. Co-CEOs, like I worked with BlackBerry, like when they had co-CEOs, and that was kind of a circus because they had their own press departments, and it was just a big mess. I don't know. I mean, I think either of those two would be a good. Or maybe like Deepak is COO and Jerome is CEO. That would actually make a lot of sense. I think Tesla kind of really should get a COO like that.
Yeah,
That was
Elon stays on. Yeah.
when so a little bit of Apple history, like when Steve Jobs had Tim Cook handling all the minutia of the BS and and the important stuff like the supply chain, but not like the front end stuff. That kind of was what let Steve Jobs focus on the product, and when he could spend a lot of time focusing on product is kind of when the iPhone was born, and the kind when Apple went from almost dying to the biggest company in the world. So it's got to be hard to find a person, and Elon has even said like there's no show me somebody who can do this and I'll hire them. I don't know that there's a person suited to this role, but if there is a candidate, maybe throw him in the COO role now, just so like there's not if you're a Tesla investor, fan, driver, whatever, that if Elon does something, something happens to Elon, whether it's his fault or not, there is a succession plan, and every company has a succession plan. Like Tesla right now has if Elon dies, open up this box and it has like everything to do. But I don't know that a second person, like a fitting number two, is around, like available.
Like I said in the article, I think the most important thing for whoever ends up getting the position of CEO, it should be someone as a champion of Tesla's mission to accelerate the advent of renewable energy and electric transport. I think that's the most important thing of any executive at the company, but especially the CEO. You should be good at operation, of course, unless you have a great COO, like you said, that handles all the operation thing. But the main goal is that every high-level decision at Tesla should be with the goal to advance their mission.
Yeah, maybe Andy Rubin, but he's kind of an entrepreneur. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, he's more good at starting stuff than
right.
Is he still at the
Playground?
What is it called?
He's got a thing called Playground now, where he's got the phones, but he's also doing Skydio, which is the drone.
Oh yeah, Skydio. Yeah,
and they took a bunch of
Tesla Autopilot.
So they've actually got a pretty good Autopilot thing going there for their drone. Anyway,
yeah, we're already half an hour in. We talk about that stuff. We're gonna move on to something a little bit more fun, people. So sorry if it bored you with that ACC stuff, SEC.
But, it's the worst timing ever because like we're about to talk about version 9 and the Tesla numbers are both awesome. Like why are we even talking about SEC?
Yeah, that's what I just tweeted. Like it looks like the worst time for Tesla. The CEO is being sued and the stock dropped 40%. But if you take that away and you look at everything else at Tesla, it looks like the best shape that the company has ever been in with version 9 coming up now. We just reported the production numbers, which are great. So it's so weird right now for the time. But version 9, so that's something we've all been waiting for a long time. Arguably the biggest update since version 8 2 years ago, so a long time. It looks like Tesla started sending out the update to early beta testers, and for some reason, it leaked a lot more than it normally leaks when they send out to beta testers. A bunch of people shared images, the release notes, and everything. So we know pretty much everything there is to know about version 9 right now. Uh, we can well, we already talked a lot about the UI difference and bringing the Model 3 UI to Model S and X, which is still the case. But a few things that we didn't know about that we can share now. The mobile app integration is pretty interesting. And well, we only know it about the release note themselves. We didn't actually try it yet, so we don't know exactly how it works. But it does sound that Tesla is integrating third-party mobile apps to be able to share navigation to your car directly. They didn't mention in the app, but I think that like when we were talking about Google Maps, basically. So that was my understanding. Is that
It would be likely because they also use Google for their mapping, not their directions, but the mapping.
yeah? So that's something I've been asking for a while because you don't necessarily want to plan your trip uh, from your car. So as soon as you leave, like you get in your car and then you plan your trip there. Even though it can be as easy as just entering the address or whatever. If it's that, then it's that. But if you want to check different routes or anything like that, you want to do that before you leave. So now you could do it on your phone and then um, share. You can press share on your routing on the Google Map, and then you're gonna have the option to share it to your car. Apparently, you would share it with your Tesla. Doing that will send it to your car directly, and when you arrive in your car, you already have your destination and routing set up, which is pretty cool, I think.
You know, what'd be cool is if you could send somebody via email or text or whatever, hey, this is, and have like a 24-hour link, like this is where I am. And you send them that link and it communicates with the car like the app does. And somebody would know where you are for the next, 24 hours. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, though that could work too with your iPhone. I think like if you do just share, what is it called?
Yeah, you can do that with your iPhone, but
Anyway, navigate on Autopilot. We already talked a bit about that, but we have now a little bit more information. Like we reported earlier this week, it doesn't. The main goal is that when you enter a destination, you have the option now to also click navigate on Autopilot, which is going to suggest you lane changes on the highway and be able to automatically take interchanges and exits. Basically, driving completely autonomously on the highway. Aside from the fact that you're still responsible, so that's something that we learned this week with the beta release of the feature. The driver is just like the regular autopilot with auto steer. You're still responsible. You still have to keep your hands on the wheel. It's just now that your vehicle can do its own lane change without you activating it. When you first activate the navigate on autopilot feature, it suggests you the lane change and you have to activate it with the turn signal. But you can deactivate it and you're going to do the lane change by itself. So it gives you an additional warning that it can happen at any time. We haven't seen it work yet live, but apparently there's no warning. Well, there might be a warning, but it's a very short one. So you might just be looking at the road and at some point, the car by itself changes lane. So something to look out for. But yeah, that's basically what Navigate Autopilot does. It's regular Autopilot. Just if you have a destination enter, it's gonna do its own lane change and its own exits and interchange takes to get you there. But you still need to keep your hands on the wheel. I mean, it really sounds like a very early version of the promised on ramp off ramp feature that Tesla announced with the release of Enhanced Autopilot. That was 2 years ago.
yeah, I think they need to start showing like some signs of that.
Well,
There's already been a lawsuit, but
yeah, and you can get like $20 from it.
right.
But it's basically that. It's just that it's not really level 3 because you have to keep your hands on the wheel and everything. So you're not really the backup system. You're the actual system that keeps monitoring everything. Of course, the idea behind that is that if that works well, Tesla could eventually turn it into a level 3, but it's not right now. So let's not even talk about that. Everyone stay intensive and be ready to take control the whole time, because we know what happens if you don't. The dash cam feature with the autopilot cameras, that's something that we revealed earlier this week, because we got access to not only the release notes but also the owner's manual of the feature. And so that's something that Tesla's been talking about for 2 years since he released Autopilot 2.0, to use those 8 cameras I already have on the system to have a dash cam system on it and use it as such.
And those are black and white cameras, right?
Yeah, they can have some color in it, but that's the only thing that we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen the actual footage from one if you use it as a dash cam, but I think
But they weren't designed for for
no,
human eyes.
and it's only the narrow facing camera of it. So it's one of the 3 cameras. So it's the one that looks the further out, but it's narrower, so you don't have the wide vision. So that's one of the limitations. But okay, so the way it works, you have to have a USB drive, a flash drive. You put it in one of the 2 front USB plugs outlets. So you have 4 outlets on the Model 3. You have 2 in the front and 2 on the center console on the back. It needs to be on the front because those are the ones that are connected to the onboard computer. The other one are just for electricity, to get some power. So you plug in one of them, and you need to have a custom folder on that USB. I think it's called Tesla Cam. You have the folder.
I wonder if
Tesla Cam, yeah. It
I
needs
wonder
to
if
be
it formats for you, or if you have to add that.
Yeah, you have to format it with the right format. That's an article and everything. But once you have that, once you plug that, the computer is going to detect it. An icon is going to appear on your top menu, and that means that the dash cam is now on the dash cam system, and it's gonna always keep the last hour on. So after an hour, it deletes the last file every time. But what you can do is that you can click on it and save the last 10 minutes, and those are not going to be removed. So if you have enough space, you can put 10 minutes as much as you like. Other than that, it's an hour. If you don't click on anything, it's an hour that it's removed, which is pretty standard. But the big limitations are, like I said, only the front camera, the front narrow one, so you don't have a very wide coverage around your car. When the car is off, there's no recording at all. So there's no parking mode. So you cannot record if you have someone like crash into your car while it's parked. Or this being my main issue with where I wanted to see if I'm going to wait for that to arrive with version 9 or install a full dash cam system is vandalism with cars that I was pretty worried about. We've seen a bunch of them in Montreal lately where people target Tesla vehicle without targeting the owner. So I was worrying about that. Doesn't do much with that because once your car is powered down, dash cam is not running and also not running in the back. So pretty useless in that function. Also, no wireless connection, no Wi-Fi. If you want to actually look at your footage, you have to unplug the USB, plug it in your computer, and download the file. Most dashcam system now have Wi-Fi connections, so once you arrive at home, it connects to your own Wi-Fi, download the footage automatically to your system. You can have all of it set up so it goes automatically, which is great. So
These are
yeah,
all things that could happen in the future, though. This is like all the, like for instance, Wi-Fi. The car has Wi-Fi. It could, upload. I mean, it uploads lots of data to the cloud. It can, upload to your home system if you have it set up, or maybe Tesla has a, dash cam caching service. The same with like it not working when the car is off. Maybe that's just to start, and you can actually, a few point versions later, maybe you can say, hey, I'm in a high crime area, leave the dash cam on while I'm parked here or something. Like,
yeah, that's all true. The thing is we all know like Tesla's pace of releases haven't been great lately. So
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
yeah, I mean, it's just all the hardware is there. It's just
Yeah, yeah,
it's a
it's
software
all
problem.
possible. That's for sure. So yeah, that's something to think about. But in the meantime, if you want full coverage, you're better off with a real dash cam. So if you really believe that Tesla's gonna implement a lot of improvements to the feature in the coming weeks or months, then it's not really worth it to have a full installations. Because I haven't looked in too much also yet all to install a dash cam in the Model 3 where it looks good, where you can actually plug it. Because of course that's also removes one of your USB plugs in the front. So normally you have two for like one for each phones in the front. So you're gonna have to remove the one for the passenger, but it's not that bad because you can just plug in the back too. So it's not a big issue.
Yeah, a lot of times you can actually, if you're going into your dashboard, you can find some hot wires to use, and dash cams don't use a lot of juice, so you don't necessarily need to use the USB port, especially if you're trying to make it look good. You don't want it to come out of your USB ports.
Yeah. Another new feature is new blind spot warning, which is pretty well done. Now, if you look at your instrument cluster, the lines, your Autopilot detects the lines on each side. They make it blue. Now, if you're about to go, if there's someone in a bad spot, in your blind spot, excuse me, you get a red line that shows a red. The line where it's blue becomes red, so that you know that you cannot cross it because there's a car there in your blind spot. So it's better implementation of blind spot warning, basically. Atari games, of course, the Easter egg of having the Atari emulator for a few games, it's in there.
How many games are there?
3.
Hmm. Just
And yeah,
Missile Command.
yeah, asteroids and another one, I think. But yeah, all the other changes are mainly user interface changes that are different based on the Model 3. If you're talking about if you're getting version 9 on the Model 3 or Model S or Model X, because of course, like we said, the bulk of the difference is in the Model S and X because it's getting the same uh, the closer user interface as the Model 3, which use the app launcher now. So you have your app launcher at the bottom of the screen that
Yeah, it's going to be
launches.
a big change for Model S and X owners who have,
Yeah.
because I know when I moved to the Model 3, it wasn't a couple days before I was like comfortable with the interface.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Model S and X, you mostly interact with the top menu at the top. Now it's gonna all be at the bottom left for the launcher. So yeah, it's a different way to interact with them. It's one more click for people, but one more push on the screen. That's what I say. One more touch. But yeah, the app launcher is the biggest difference. Navigation system for the Model 3, like we said last time. Did we say that last week, or we reported on it earlier this week, maybe? So we didn't discuss on the podcast yet, but the navigation turns, all the action that you need to do for your navigation system, instead of being on the far right, they're now on the left side, just next to your instrument cluster, the instrument cluster part of the touchscreen, I should say, which is a lot closer to the driver, of course. So I'm happy with that, but when I reported on that, a bunch of people weren't happy apparently. So a bunch of people say, we don't look at that, like
You can't please all the people.
yeah. So apparently, a lot of people prefer just looking at the map than getting the next turn. But I don't know. Depending on, I agree with that on the Model S, where you get the actual map with a 3D version of it right in the instrument cluster in front of you. That's nice. You can get a good idea of your next action, whether it's a turn, whether it's taking an exit, whatnot. But on the Model 3, where we have the satellite map or the Google Map view, I think it's a lot better to look at the actual action that you need to take in the turn cards. The media got a little update, of course, very similar to the Model 3 version. Climate control got, especially for the Model 3, you have a whole new animation system
Yeah,
where
it's kind of cool.
yeah, it's well done. You have a better idea of the airflow, where the airflow is going, and you can manipulate it in real time. It's pretty cool. right. What else we have? So you can for the actual images and everything, you can look on Electrek. We published a bunch of images both for the Model S with version 9 and the Model 3. Of course, the Model X is going to be the same thing as the Model 3. Oh yeah, for we actually it's going to be the first time we're going to get access to the Mad Max mode. Again, that goes with the autopilot navigate on autopilot that we talked about earlier. Since the autopilot is now suggesting the lane changes and everything, it has to have some levels of aggressiveness with the like how aggressive are you about making or the lane change. So you can be mild, you can be, I think that's average or standard. We don't see it right here, but or Mad Max. We talked about it a few months back because Elon revealed it on the Tesla Semi. They were testing it on the Tesla Semi, but now it's making its way to Tesla's passenger vehicles. And if you're in place with a lot of traffic where drivers are more aggressive, if you put autopilot on mild, it might have some difficulties actually making a lane change because it's going to require a lot of spaces between cars for it to actually initiate it. But you could increase it to man max, which my understanding of it is it would make it a lot more aggressive. So if there's a lot less space between cars, it would actually try to make the lane change either way, which places
It
like
sounds
Los
like
Angeles.
they're quicker too. Like they happen a lot faster.
You mean they move from one lane to
Yeah.
another just faster? Yeah, I don't know. That sounds risky, but maybe like I said, while we know all the details from all the release notes and the owner's manual update and everything, we haven't just not seen it working autopilot, and especially navigate on autopilot with version 9 in a car. So we can't wait to actually see that because apparently there's also just general improvements in autopilot that we want to see too. So that's gonna be cool.
It'll be interesting to feel the car changing lanes on its own without any interaction. I think that'll be kind of the next level of autonomy feeling.
Yeah, because it's already weird when when you initiate it yourself and it moves by itself in the lane. Now, if you don't even initiate it, that's gonna be strange. Model 3 Productions, we just published that a few hours ago. We got the latest numbers for last week. Like we said last week, Tesla increased the production a lot, but they were kind of cutting close for the goal. But we can confirm today that Tesla actually achieved the goal, which was between 50,000 and 55,000 cars. They just got over 51,000 this week. So they're there, and if they continue with the pace that they had this week, which was a record pace, because it looks like they got 5,000 Model 3s between last Friday and this Friday and today. So first time that Tesla got back to 5,000 units. If they continue at that pace, it looks like they're going to be at very close to 80,000 units total, 53,000 Model 3, which is actually in the higher hand of what they were aiming for. So that's really good. 6,700 cars. So I said about 5,000 Model 3, about 6,700 cars total. So a little fewer Model S and X this week. But total for the quarter to date, 77,400 approximately. Like I said, my source is very good, very reliable, but they can be different ways that Tesla calculate the production. Like they said, factory gate. So we're not sure exactly what they mean by factory gate. It can be when the actual car roll off the line. Do they include the rework and everything? So you can give maybe like a 1% point margin here of error. But otherwise, I think my source is very good at it.
Yeah, and at the last call, they said they expected to be close to 6,000 Model 3s per week. Sorry.
That was in August, though. They wanted to be that by the end of August. So they're
a little late on that part.
Yeah, definitely late on that part. But the overall goal was achieved, which is very good.
That seems to be a consistent theme.
Yeah,
they get a little ahead of themselves.
Well, with that, with the production increase, Tesla's also tentatively starting to work on the production expansion for Europe. We learned earlier this year that Tesla was actually aiming for early 2019, mid 2019, for international expansion of the Model 3 program. And this week, they registered a bunch of other VINs for European cars. So as you know, the European cars are not the same as the American ones. There's a bunch of like small things for homologation that they need to change. Them and in terms of charging, of course, the main one they need to have a CC. Well, maybe they can have CCS, but
Monkeys.
yeah, they need to have at least Manichae's Type 2, so it's a different plug that they have in the US. So the car is actually a little bit different, but they registered 7 VINs for the European market. So it looks like they got start making production of a few cars. They could use that just for testing and for the European authorities to get the homologation or some crash tests too. They have some European organization that do crash tests, so maybe they're gonna use the cars for that. We don't know, but they are starting to get into that, which is a good sign for our European friends that are
And where
making
and
some cars.
where what's a good venue for showing off the Model 3 in Europe?
Well,
The
Paris, right?
Paris Motor Show.
Yeah.
What other place?
Okay. Oh, it's right here. I knew I had the article somewhere, but I didn't see it. Yeah, they're coming to Paris. We a bunch of local owners reached out to us this week saying that Tesla sent them an invite for the Paris Motor Show because they're gonna show the Model 3 there for the first time, and
Who else is going to be there?
we are gonna be there.
Yes, we're going to Paris.
Yeah, we're going to Paris next week. So if you guys are around for the show and everything, hit us up. We'd like to meet you. And yeah, we're gonna check out Tesla, but we don't expect anything new really from there. Since it's gonna be just mostly about showing the Model 3s to locals that have reserved it. This is gonna have like a sort of an event where you can actually get inside the car, which is not always the case for the Model 3 in those car shows. Um, but we're also going to check out a few other cars, electric cars that we expect going to be unveiled there. We're going to check out also a bunch of other electric vehicles, like personal vehicles, like scooters and motorbikes and e-bikes. I'm also going to get to see the E-Legend in person. We talked about that last week, the Peugeot E-Legend that I really liked. So the car's going to be there for the first time. That's the car show debut of the car. So pretty excited about that. Quickly, we can also mention we got the full numbers for the Tesla big battery in Australia. So that's been around for almost a year now. But and we've got a bunch of information that was very successful in doing what it does, which is reduce the service cost of the grid that it performs the frequency adjustment to make sure that basically the job of a peaker plant when the demand increase a lot, instead of bringing the peaker plants who are very polluting and more expensive, you just use the energy storage capacity of the large Tesla power pack system, which is a 129 megawatt hour, biggest in the world at the time. What we learned this week is we learned the actual numbers behind it. The actual cost 66 million. That's US. Why we got that finally a year after the project was installed is because the owner of the project, or the power pack system, is linked to the Hornsdale wind farm that's next to it, because it's part of the energy capacity is used as grid services for the Australian energy market. Part of it is also used by the wind farm to store some extra wind energy and release it to the market when there's more demand for it. And those guys, the Neoen, I don't know how they pronounce it, but Neoen, we'll say. It's a French company. They made an IPO in the Paris financial markets. So looking into the IPO numbers, we got all the details from it, including the full price of 66 million, which is quite expensive as on a kilowatt hour basis, because Elon said that the bigger project are going to go down to about $200 per kilowatt hours. So that's more around $500, so big difference. But it was an early project at the big size. So I think like the new one that they were working on with PG&E, which is 1 gigawatt hour, I think that's going to be much closer to what Elon was talking about in terms of pricing. But even at the much higher cost, what we're seeing now is that it's very profitable, because they already made, I said up to 17 million in the first 6 months. So 17 million, I say up to that because the way that they break down the price is not perfect. Like it made 9.5 million. That's from the grid services and energy sell to the Australian market. So that's really money, like pure cash that they're generating. but they also made 7.9 million for storing and sending energy from the wind farm. So that's more like it's probably couldn't attribute the full 7.9 million because of the actual cost of producing the energy from the wind farm. So I don't know exactly, but for sure it's very profitable because that's the first 6 months of operation. That thing is warranted for as a warranty for 10 years or something. So it's gonna get a return on investment like 3 years or something like
Yeah, the fact that they had to ship it across the world probably wasn't
that. Didn't help.
didn't help the price per watt. PG&E is a lot closer.
Yeah, that's true. That's certainly true. And they did it fast too.
Yeah, it's kind of a rush job.
Yeah.
It's probably why we don't have power walls right now.
Yeah. Finally, we're gonna leave you on with talking about the BMW i3, which we don't talk about often because there's not much to talk about most of the time. But now there's an upgrade, pretty cool one too. So
Yeah, 160 miles, that beats the Leaf. And
yeah, it does.
and it's already like, people really love these cars. I don't know why BMW has kind of slowed the pace of innovation. I mean, they look the exact same as they did 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Same motor, same, pretty much the same batteries. Now they're getting a respectable battery range of 160 miles, which will put them in a lot more people's wheelhouse. Do we get a price on it? I don't think we got.
No, we don't have a price yet. It's coming in November. So the actual battery upgrade is just a battery cell upgrade. So they never really updated the battery pack design itself. They kept the same battery pack, but they just they get this. I think is it? No, it's Samsung. Never remember. It's Samsung or LG that they get their cells from. But anyway, it went from 60 amp hour for this first version to 94 amp hour with the 2016 upgrade. Now it's 120 amp hours for the 2018 upgrade, which adds up to a 42.2 kilowatt hour battery pack. And like you said, about 160 miles of range. And yeah, you really had to go deep into the press release to understand the range because they still use the NEDC number and then they put the WTP on there on top. Then on top of the WTP, they said everyday conditions, driving conditions. How did they put that? An everyday condition without any loss of the brand-based driving pleasure. So meaning that you can still have some spirited driving with it and not drive like a whole man. But yeah. If they can keep the price, like we said, we don't know for sure. But if you do, you get a lot more value for it. But right now in the US, it starts at $44,000, which I think is expensive for a vehicle.
For
Of course,
160 miles, yeah.
you get the incentive and everything. But if you are okay with 150 miles, 160 miles, and whatnot, you can get like the Leaf for like $10,000 cheap.
More than that.
Yeah, $15,000 cheaper. So.
Right.
Uh,
And Leaf
and
is
it's not a
bigger.
fair comparison because, of course, the BMW is a little bit more premium. Like the interior looks a little bit better. But I mean, I'm just not being a fan of the design myself. I find it very hard to put that $15,000 premium on that car.
Yeah, it's not great for like long, obviously the range for long trips, but even like it's kind of an upright stature, a little bit like the Chevy Bolt, makes it more of a city car and it performs admirably as a city car. The kind of suicide doors in the back, if you're dropping off your kid at school, is really annoying because you have to open up the front door to open up the back door.
Mm-hmm.
Little things like that, where they've kind of done. What is it? Form over function.
Mm-hmm.
That you kind of gotta leave some room for. It is interesting though that I think a month ago, or not even a month ago, a third party company built the same in the same battery pack. They built a 100 kilowatt hour pack. A company called Lion. Which yields a 434 mile range, and like the question is always like, why don't you do that, BMW, or like why don't you get closer to that at least? Like a 60 kilowatt hour pack would have been kind of like the minimum for a lot of people. and upgrade the CSS charging to 100 kilowatts instead of keeping it where it is. So again, like BMW is a great car maker. It almost feels like they're sabotaging their electric vehicle ambitions with these like good but not great updates.
Yeah, I just don't think that they want to invest in the program much. I mean, when I went and visited them earlier this year, I came out of it saying that the BMW i3 program is dead. Basically, once they get the fifth generation powertrain technology, electric powertrain technology they're working on right now, that's gonna be first released next year with the iX3. My understanding is that they're just gonna drop the BMW i3, maybe even the BMW i8. Just gonna drop the program and then focus on their what they very much adopted is the idea of having platform that can support gas-powered car, plug-in hybrids, and electric vehicles, and just keep vehicle programs that can switch between all those different powertrains and produce them all in the same production lines. So and it sounds good. And I think they're going to be able to reduce the price of their electric vehicles because of that, because they are using the same production line, which are already producing a tons of gas-powered cars. My only concern is just I think there's going to be some compromise in that. If you're building a platform that can support three different powertrains, I think you have to make some compromise for the electric one if it's also support gas-powered ones. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to see once those cars actually come out. But my understanding is that BMW actually won't survive that transition.
Oh wow, that's a bold prediction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's already overdue for a refresh, and they don't seem to be working on one. So
right. And
well, they
right,
said that they did one last year, right? They claimed that it was a refresh with the IS3, the i3S coming out, and
right,
I mean the car looks very much the same. So
right. Yeah, it's baffling to me because they play like they had this recent event where they flew that car around the globe.
the iNex, yeah.
Yeah, and clearly they are putting on a public face that they want to electrify, but like it doesn't seem like behind the scenes that they're. It seems like somebody is dragging them, kicking and screaming into electrification. Like it, right now they're like, well, look, we're doing the i3, but that's kind of like a mediocre car, and they're probably saying, well, look, nobody wants the i3, or very few people want the i3, and they're right because one, it has very polarizing looks, and two, it doesn't have any range, and three, whatever. So I don't know if BMW is going to disappear, but like it does seem like if what we believe that the whole planet will be electrified soon, BMW is going to be way behind.
Yeah, unless it really works with their three powertrain platforms, which, like I said, I'm skeptical about. But we're gonna give them the benefit of the doubt until we can actually see those cars. But yeah, I mean, that's a bold prediction that the BMW, one of the most respected automakers of all time, could disappear out of that transition. That could be interesting. Let us know what you think in the comment section below, and thanks a lot for.
Yeah, we have one small update for our
Oh yeah.
Patreon. So patreon.com/Electrek. Today, the first hoodies went out, or actually this week. So everybody who gave me their size now has a hoodie on their way. What we're going to do is we're going to actually start a apparel store, a swag store. And our Patreon supporters are going to be the first to have access to it. So in the coming week or so, we'll have all that information, and the people who've got the sweatshirt tier, the hoodie tier, and the t-shirt tier will be able to buy for free from the t-shirt store. So all that information is coming up to our Patreon supporters. If you haven't already and you'd like to, please support us, patreon.com/Electrek.
Yes, thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for watching and listening to, and we're gonna see you same time next week. Bye bye.